Obviously, I'm a Yankees fan, so I'd love to see him.
It's almost like legacy of like the NFL versus.
But I definitely think that Baker could be a really good player for the Panthers moving forward.
Did I say Oreos?
There's a lot of questions I have about Mahomes. Looks like a kid playing Madden.
Turning point in the game is the 13-second drive.
They play very hard, even though they're terrible.
He's a good pick. You for sure. He's going to be a good player, but I can't argue against the Jamar Chase pick.
They made moves saying we're going to win this year, at least get into the playoffs.
I'm going with my guy, Corey Seager. So glad.
What's good, y'all? My name is Austin Drummond, and I play rugby for the University of Notre Dame. And you're listening to The Outsider's Opinion with Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. A few days ago, our episode about top 10 current wide receivers was released, and let us know what you thought. I haven't seen anything on comments that have disagreed with us and said we're wrong, so I feel we are probably correct on all those picks. And of course, now we're doing a running back one, which before we get into that, I will introduce our leading pass catcher and runner, Austin.
Oh, I'm not Eckler, even though Eckler will be on this list. This is one that I don't think we're going to agree on at all. The other one we were kind of close, sort of, kind of, but this one, like, there may be a guy I have really high that you don't even have in your top 10. So,
yeah, and I was kind of telling you before we were recording, but like this was okay. How do I view them without seeing the stats? Okay, a lot of the stats make sense. I'm gonna change a little bit. Like I'll move this guy from 7 to 5, or 6 to 5, 5 to 4, 3 to 1, or 2 to 3. It was just something where the stats kind of made sense, but some guys had historic years, but this is for next season. So how does that affect that someone who had a down year in his terms? And yeah, I don't think we'll probably agree because it's just so difficult. And probably next year, I wouldn't be shocked if 5 of these guys are not on this list.
yeah, I could definitely see it. At least 4 for me probably won't be on my top 10 next year. And it was really hard for me. And you got to factor in, like, QB situation. You have to factor in O-line situation. You have to factor in coaching situation and so much more. But I'll get right into it. Let me say my honorable mention. All these guys are good. There would be a different tier for 10 through 7. But for my honorable mention, good. Jamal Williams, Tony Pollard, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, and Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson was hurt for a good part of the year. He still had 8 rushing touchdowns. He set the record for the most kick return touchdowns of all time. And I believe fully healthy, he can still be a good receiving back. And I that's my only one that I'm like, well, he was hurt last year, but I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt that they're going to use him right under a new system. Hey, maybe they get Lamar, and then I could really see him and his growth increase wildly.
That's good. I share one person in honorable mention with you, and that's Breece Hall. He was injured, and I'd kind of lump him in with Isaiah Pacheco, who's another honorable mention. These are 2 young guys where I think they could be in the top 10 in the next few years, or they could not. And then I have Joe Mixon. He was probably one of the hardest cuts I had to make.
Yeah, Joe Mixon's not even on my honorable mentions. I'm not high on Joe Mixon. I feel like he gets some of his success from his team. And a crazy stat to mention is that Joe Mixon last year had 7 rushing touchdowns. 5 of those happened in the same game.
That's a good point. He also had 14 games. A lot of the guys were very consistent. There's one guy who's less than that. And then I mentioned Breece Hall. I had Dobbins' injury. I'm just believing in the potential, but I want to honorable mention him. And then my final guy, like he's not in my contribution to the top 10, and like I didn't think of him, but I think he's a solid running back, and he's a nice piece to a running back room if you don't get one of these top guys, and it's Jerick McKinnon. It just seems at the end of the
So
season
you have
that's
2 Chiefs.
yes, I do.
Okay.
But I just wanted to honorable mention and just talk about Jerick McKinnon. He just seems like his season comes on close to the postseason.
Okay.
I don't know if he's a top 15 running back. He's probably not.
What's your 10?
My 10 is Jonathan Taylor.
That's a good one. He's another one I didn't have on my list, and that's mainly because I don't know if he can stay healthy. He was hurt so many times last year, but also I don't believe just for next year, at least statistically speaking, I don't think he does much better. Their team is so torn down, so completely and utterly gutted. He had 4 touchdowns last year in 11 games. He's a great running back when fully healthy, but he played 11 games. And his team is getting worse. His O line is getting worse. His quarterback situation is getting worse. So I don't know if I necessarily believe in him for next year. And that's what this is about. Next year, who will be better?
That's
I don't know if he will be.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, 11 games, 800 and, oh no, that's different. 861 rushing yards, 1,000 total yards, which is the scrimmage yards you brought up. I really like that stat, so I want to keep that. He had 220 touches, had only 4 touchdowns and 3 fumbles. There are so many stats I had to use compared to the wide receiver one, and there's probably more stats that I should have used in this.
Oh, 100%.
calculation.
I agree. I agree.
It's
My number
'cause there's-
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many stats. I mean, there's
You
a lot
mentioned
to
like
it.
the average yards per carry, and I'm like, that's a good one too. Like I could look up longest runs, like what's their acceleration, because to me that's something I like to see in the running back is that burst.
Here's one that I think is very underrated. Can they pass block? I think that matters. It's a whole reason why I didn't think Zeke
yeah.
was a bum. It's the whole reason why, Zeke's so bad. And, well, he's one of the best pass blockers as a running back, and I think that matters. So, but how using stats, how do you even find that out? The only reason
Yeah.
why I know that Zeke's a good pass blocker is because I've watched Cowboy games.
And there are some good highlights of him like blocking out some dudes, which is
Yeah,
nice. But it's definitely something I wish I was like, yeah, I'm really not going to be able to do that because I can't watch all the running backs block.
That's true. I agree. On to my number 10. My number 10 is Kenneth Walker III.
Ooh.
The Seahawks did not have a good O-line. They didn't. And at the end of the season, they kind of his stats went down because the O-line got hurt and everything was not really working out. But for a rookie, wow, he was very, very impressive. 15 games, only 11 starts, 1,050 yards, 9 touchdowns. He was very, very good. Also, one thing, a big reason why I had him on here, terrible O-line, 0 fumbles, Kevin. None.
It's a good quality. Yeah, he's not on my list, and he did cross my mind. I was like, where does he rank? And I'm like, he was close to the honorable mentions.
I think because of his lackluster O-line, the fact that he's a rookie, I think he could be better next year. The team will be better next year. I think he could be a top 10 running back next year, and that's really what
for sure. Yeah, and there will be guys that just come out of nowhere, or quote unquote out of nowhere. Like Tony Pollard this year, kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of people. Even though you've known me long enough, where I've been a Tony Pollard person, like I didn't expect him to be this good, but it was just like, don't pay Zeke, because Zeke, to his credit, did a great job negotiating that contract.
Oh, 100%.
Because for the people that aren't familiar with it, Zeke had 2 more years left on his rookie deal before he got the contract extension and he sat out. It was just he was coming off a great few years, and he played Jerry Jones. And my main grapple is with Jerry Jones, just was thinking emotionally instead of mathematically, which as a GM I think you have to do. You have to dissolve that personal bias that you have, because we saw with Belichick, he cut Ty Law because he wouldn't take an extension. He traded Drew Bledsoe. But do you want to add anything before I go in? Well, you can add something and then go into your 9.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think Zeke is or at least his agent is a very smart person for doing that. And
That's true.
Whoever suggested it definitely got him paid a lot more than he could have been. My number 9 is Miles Sanders. His stats are helped by the fact that he does have one of the best O-lines, if not the best O-line in the league with the Eagles. I think that he is a great player, though, and I think he will be somebody in the future that I think a lot of people look up to as one of the star running backs as the Eagles keep doing well. He was a Pro Bowler this year, 1,269 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 2 fumbles. He will be good as long as the Eagles' rushing attack is also good.
Yeah, that's a good one. He is not on my list, but it was someone I thought of. Number 9 is a guy I was just talking about, Tony Pollard. Um, I know you had him in the honorable mentions. He's lower on this list, despite the stats he had, which 0 fumbles, 232 touches, 12 touchdowns, 1,000 rushing yards, 1,378 scrimmage yards, and was in 16 games. The problem is the injury he's coming off of. Does he have
And the
that
fact
hurt?
that he's now the bell horse. He's the only guy. He's the guy that's going to get the rock almost 100% of the time because they don't have Zeke. They don't have the guy that can give him some rest. And so I do think that matters.
But yeah, I think that's fair. So he could replicate it and then maybe get even higher. But with the injury, and that's what I did with like these 2 guys, Jonathan Taylor and Pollard, injury riddle. Well, one got an injury late in the season. Jonathan Taylor dealt with a lot of injuries. I like the potential that I've seen, but can they continue it? And to me, that was unable for the potential of them was able to, for me to place them in my top 10.
Yeah, and this is one that, again, with Taylor, with Pollard, 2 guys I don't have in my top 10. I just don't know how they're going to deal with injuries. So I went a lot safer with mine, I guess, because Taylor could just be hurt all year, or Pollard even could just come back and not be the same guy. So
That's fair. So yeah, the 2 teams should consider doing this. I kind of view it as if I'm building a roster and I'm choosing running back rounds, I'm gonna grab this running back or this wide receiver for next.
yeah,
year.
it's a who you want type of thing, but
Mhm.
also injuries can kind of
that's
shy you
totally
away
fair.
from that. Who's your number 8?
My number 8 is Dalvin Cook. 4 fumbles, 303 touches, but 10 touchdowns, 1,173 rushing yards, 1,468 total yards, and he was in 16 games. He probably, I understand if you have him higher on this list. It's just it was tough with the other guys in the seasons they've had, but Dalvin Cook is a great receiving running back and also a good runner.
Yeah, I also have a very good receiving back. Someone that had a great bounce back year this year after last year kind of struggling. My number 8 is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, somebody that played all 17 games, 1,121 yards. This is the stat I want to talk about: yards per attempt, 5.3 yards per carry. Very, very impressive. I know he only had 2 rushing touchdowns, but that's because when they got down to the 1-yard line, they gave it to Dylan. So he wasn't getting those extra touches, but I don't think that takes away from the fact that he's a great receiving running back. He had 5 receiving touchdowns. He had approximate value of 12, which is very good. And he's just 1,516 yards from scrimmage. He played all 17 games. He's not someone that gets hurt, and that is valuable.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And I have Jones a little bit higher, even though to me, kind of a down year with the touchdowns. I just saw 7 total touchdowns. But he's a very consistent, healthy player, and I like his pass catching ability. So that's why he's a little bit higher.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that he's higher on your list. My number 7 is Dalvin Cook, and these 10 through 7 are give them the rock. That's the category. So honorable mention was good. These are give them the rock, whether it's passing or rushing. And Dalvin Cook, for the same reasons as you. I think the fact that Dalvin Cook doesn't have to share the limelight with anyone like Aaron Jones has to share with AJ Dillon. So I think that's part of the reason why I have him a little bit higher. And maybe because their team was a little bit better and he profited off of the success of Justin Jefferson in the passing game. So those 2 are very, very close to me. And
Yeah.
Those was a hard pick.
Yeah, my 7 is Saquon Barkley. I understand if someone wants to have him higher. If you have him higher, I totally understand that. Just to me, he played 16 games this year, which was, to me, remarkable. He had 650 total yards, 12 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, 352 touches, and only 1 fumble. The problem for me when picking him for next year is, can he sustain this? And I'm just to me, he's one of those guys, right or wrong, just injury prone. in when I view it. So if he can play 15 games next year, or he does 16 again and puts, because if he's healthy, he's going to put up these numbers. It's just, is he going to show up on the field for me?
Yeah, I do have him higher, and I think that's because I believe in the O line of the Giants. I believe in Brian DeBall. I think they're gonna figure out how to keep him on the field and do what is necessary to keep him healthy, and so I do have him higher. Who's your number 6?
My number 6 is Nick Chubb. He had played 17 games, 64 total yards. Most of that was rushing, as he got 1,525 rushing touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, 329 touches, only one fumble. There are only 2 guys on my list that fumbled, actually 3 guys, that fumbled on this list more than 3 times, which to me was incredible, but I like that value of other guys. But I think Chubb is a great runner. I'm not sure how he does in the passing game, but to me he's higher because he was just a phenomenal running back last year. And there are a few more guys who are just strictly running backs and not pass catchers. But if you had a great running year and you're just such a dominant runner, you're going to be on this list. And that's why Nick Chubb may be a little bit higher.
And all the chaos that's happening on his team doesn't
That's
matter.
true.
He will get his yards. My number 6 is Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had a great year last year with the Raiders. He's a great player. And in this 6 through 1 category, these are the worth paying. So these are the 6 running backs that, in my opinion, are worth paying maybe more than what you say is the minimum that you would pay for, or maximum, I should say.
Yeah,
for a running
I was
back.
about to say, if that's a tier of mine, no running backs can be on that list.
Yeah, I think that's a flaw that you may have, but when
That's
the
fair.
49ers win the Super Bowl this next year and they're paying Christian McCaffrey a lot of money, I think they'll be okay with that because
Well, yeah, that's fair. And that would be an anomaly because I will go to the stat. I'm wondering how the top 3 runners do. But I've told you the number 1 running, like the rushing title winner and the Super Bowl champion. The Super Bowl champion has not had the number 1 rushing leader since when? I'll let you guess. Name a running back.
Emmitt Smith.
No. I think there may be someone a little bit more recent.
When? What year?
I know it's in the 90s. Shoot, I need.
Oh, it's TD.
Yes, it is Terrell Davis.
That's right. That makes sense.
So, I'm curious on who's in top 3, and if that limits it or it's the same thing. But yeah, we could see that with the Niners. We'll see. But yeah, it could be a flaw of mine, and I recognize there will be some guys where I'm like, yeah, I will miss out on you because of my idea.
That's true. So I'll go straight to my number 5, and it's Nick Chubb, a beast. Someone I had on my fantasy team from round 1 to throughout the year, and he was more than enough. I wish he got some more touchdowns, but I think that's just because of the lackluster attitude that surrounded the team and their offense and Deshaun Watson and all that chaos. But what a great running back, and I was very impressed with him. He's so consistent. He doesn't fumble much, and he is very, very good when you give him the ball.
Yeah, my number 5 is Aaron Jones. I have him a little bit higher than you. It's because he offers more pass catching to me than Nick Chubb, and there are only 2 guys that had fewer touches than Jones, and that's Pollard and Jonathan Taylor. Jones only had 272 touches, which everyone else on this list is at 300 or higher. To me, so that's a huge part. And like, wow, he did a little bit better with the limited number of touches because he does share the backfield. But to me, I'm going on next year. I would take Chubb. I would take Jones over Chubb because I like the multiple aspects. And most of the guys now are going to be pass catcher be good in the run game and the pass game for me. There is one outlier, maybe two outliers, but it's just because of how dominant they are. But I guess I can go right into my 4.
Yes.
That's Josh Jacobs. He's the guy. He had 2,053 scrimmage yards, 1,653 rushing yards. He did lead the league in touches with 393. He only had 3 fumbles, 12 total touchdowns, but he had such an incredible season that I did have him lower at the start because I think he's going to fall off. But I think since he had such a fantastic year, I felt I had to have him in the top 5.
Yeah, my only problem was the touches. Like, yes, he led in yards, but he also led in touches. And I'm high on Josh Jacobs. I have him in my worth paying category. He's very, very good. He's elite. But I feel like the Raiders got desperate and just handed him the ball an exceedingly number of times.
I think that's a total fair thing. I probably would have had him closer where you have, and I totally understand why you have him there.
Yeah.
It's just for me.
I mean, we're not that far off. I have him at 6, you have him at 4. That's not a crazy discrepancy.
Yeah.
My number 4, someone you've already mentioned, Saquon Barkley. I think he will be healthy. I believe in Ryan the Ball, like I said. I believe in the fact that he's not the only rusher on his team, and the only other rusher on his team is Daniel Jones. The fact that he can take the ball, and that option, they have to value it because Jones runs the ball so well. So I feel like Barkley will stay healthy. He's learning how to run better. He will avoid injuries, in my opinion, and when he's healthy, he's elite.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it. And I would have him in the top 5 as well. When healthy, he's the top 5 running back. It's just I have to have that when healthy.
Yeah, you're lower on him just as I'm lower on Jonathan Taylor or Tony Pollard. It's which guys are you buying in? I'm buying in on Barkley. You're buying in on Pollard and JT. So
yeah, it's totally fair.
I go straight into my number 3. Yeah,
you're going.
My number 3. This is probably, besides maybe McCaffrey, the most. How do I put it? He can do a lot of different things, and he's used for all of his worth because of the injuries on his team. And that's obviously Austin Eckler, one of the guys that I think is one of the most underrated players in the league. The fact that he has not made a Pro Bowl yet is disgusting, and I whether it's because they don't value yards from scrimmage, which I think they should, or the fact that they just are so inconsistent about how they decide and pick running backs for the Pro Bowl. I don't know what it is, but he is arguably, like, if these top 3, while I didn't put a different category for them, if you put any of these top 3 at number 1, I would be totally okay with it. Eckler with 915 rushing yards, 722 receiving yards, 18 total touchdowns, led the league in again with the rushing plus receiving touchdowns. So basically total touchdowns. Yards from scrimmage, 1637. Yards per touch, 5.3. He's everything you want.
Yeah, I think you have it well said, well done, because that's who my number 3 is as well, Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to have the same top 3. So
or what were we going to add?
No, you go.
Well, like you were talking about if they're number 1, Eckler to me is on the fringe. Like I could understand it. I don't know if I would put
back-to-back years leading the league in rushing plus receiving. Back-to-back years with 1,500.
That would be good.
Yeah, back-to-back years with 1,500 plus yards from scrimmage. I mean, over the last 2 years, he's had 38 touchdowns, Kevin. 38. And 13 of those have been receiving.
What did his fumbles look like the year before? Because the one troubling, there were 2 things.
He had 4 last year, 5 this year.
Yeah, 5 fumbles to me was a little bit. It was like a small concern.
I don't think it matters as much because he's such a receiver as well, and he's forced the ball, and his entire own line was hurt. Like it's not like someone's helping him.
But yeah, it's true, and despite that, he's still my number 3, and I may have want to seen him This probably is an outdated thing because I remember you brought it up and I was like, that doesn't matter. He was at 915 rushing yards. If you got a little bit more, but to me, like I just thought of 1,000, but I think that may be a previous thing because you brought it up with Zeke. But those were two things when I compared it to the other two, in which I'll just go right into my two. Christian McCaffrey, he had more rushing yards and more total yards than Eckler, and he had 4 less fumbles. However, Eckler did have 5 more total touchdowns, which, like you said, Eckler led the league in total, or led the running back in total touchdowns.
Yeah, he's back-to-back years. And I don't have McCaffrey at 2. My number 2 is Derrick Henry. And why? You brought up fumbles. His whole job, he's a big boy. 6 fumbles. That just, it screams something's not right. Something's off. And I have Henry at 2. And again, of these top 3, like I said, you could have any of them at
yeah.
And Henry had 13 rushing plus receiving touchdowns as well. He had 1936 yards from scrimmage, while McCaffrey, let me pull him up. He had 1880.
Oh, what do you want? Okay.
I found it. 1880 yards from scrimmage. And I feel like the fact that McCaffrey had to go from a different team, he only fumbled 1 time. I think we could kind of talk about them two together. So Henry and McCaffrey.
Yeah, and he's someone where I'm like, for sure, you can totally have McCaffrey at 1. Like I thought about it, but to me, it's kind of with Devontae Adams, and to me, entering the year, Derrick Henry is still the number 1 back. McCaffrey had injury issues before that.
Henry's got hurt before. Last year, Henry missed half the year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Or I guess 2 years ago now.
Yeah, but McCaffrey had 17 games, incredible season, and the fumbles, I totally understand that. To me, Henry just has that ability to almost be the entire offense.
Well, that's my whole thing with. That's really why I say that these 3 are different, because Saquon, they weren't winning games with Saquon being everything. But I'm telling you right now, McCaffrey and the Panthers, they were winning games with just McCaffrey being McCaffrey. Same thing with Henry. Same thing with Eckler. There was a game this year, I think it was against the Broncos, and I think they beat the Broncos, even though it is the Broncos. They have a great defense. Keenan Allen hurt. Mike Williams hurt. Justin Herbert was like, I'm going to give the ball to Austin Eckler and pray. And you could really do that with any 3 of these guys, is just give them the ball and just hope something good happens. And that's really why they are in that next tier of rushers, because they really can change the game for anyone.
Yeah, and I think that's very well said. And I'm a little bit more hesitant on Eckler, but the stats speak for it. He totally makes sense. Henry and McCaffrey and Eckler were incredible this year. And I totally understand why you would put McCaffrey 1 is, as I have him 2. Henry to me is just such that bell cow, and just that incredible mentality. And I think we can end. We've talked about enough. I totally understand your list, and I do have a separate point to make, which kind of goes into my other running back point. But do you want to say anything else before I bring it up?
Sure. I'll just say really my last point. I found the game. It was against Denver. It was 19-16. It went into overtime. I remember watching this game. Mike Williams did play, but he only had 2 receptions for 17 yards. But basically every other good offensive player for them was out. Eckler had 16 targets and 14 rushing yards. So, or not 14 rushing yards, 14 rushing attempts. So they were trying to give him the ball every second they could. And he had so many more receptions than anyone else besides Josh Palmer. And he ended up being a huge reason why they could come in and win that game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'm pretty surprised you and I agreed on Eckler. I thought you were going to have him a little bit higher than me. But
I think it's because those 2 at the top are, for right now, set in stone.
Yes. And now it goes to the top 3. You said they're in their own category. And how many of them were drafted in the first round?
One or two?
Yes.
No, one. Yeah. Because Henry was a second round pick, and
Henry
Eckler was
a second-round
undrafted.
pick. Yes, Eckler was undrafted. And I know second round pick, it's one away from the first round, but to me, there's a difference.
And how much
Outside
you
of
have to pay a
McCaffrey,
rookie? Yes, huge difference in how much you have to pay a rookie.
that's true. And it's just to me, when I'm thinking of first round, I want long lasting production. But if you're like 26 to 30, but McCaffrey was, I believe, the 13th pick, or was he the 8th?
I thought he was top 10. I'll check right now.
I think he might be top 10. I think he's 8.
Yeah, he was 8.
Okay. So to me, McCaffrey is rare of him meeting his value, especially for the 8th pick.
Well, I would argue even more rare is a guy like Eckler, who's undrafted from Western State.
Oh yeah, he is. I'm not saying you can.
Well,
find...
he's the best part of your point, I think. Right? Isn't that kind of your point that with running backs you can kind of mold them into?
Yeah, but taking an undrafted running back to me and like Eckler to me is like Eckler to me is the highest possible thing that can happen when I sign an undrafted running back.
I mean, Pacheco was a 7th rounder, and you have him in an honorable mention.
Yes, Pacheco was a 7th rounder. But my point was more, there's not really a difference. To me, it's rare to get a running back in the top 3 because that's your goal, or top 5. In drafting him in the first round, to me, it's not that different.
I think it's not that that's true. I think it's what's true is it's so hard to be a great running back because of the physical toll and because of the elite athleticism. And you have to see, that's why Le'Veon Bell is so good. He could see the field so well. In Le'Veon's prime, he could just see the field perfectly. And you have to have a lot of different factors to be really, really, really good. And I feel like you just got to find the right guy, and it's really hard to at times. And I do think it's okay. You need a running back because every team needs somebody to play running.
Yes,
back.
you need a run game and a good running back.
When do you draft one? So let's say your running back is leaving because you don't want to pay him, obviously. So he's off his rookie deal. You don't want to pay him because you never will pay one. When are you drafting a running back?
Can you give me a draft position? Like, where's my first round pick?
20.
20, that's a good pick. 20 is a little bit high for me to draft in the first round, but I'm definitely going 2nd, 3rd, 4th. To me, that the 2nd round's kind of the sweet spot because that's where Derrick Henry, I believe, was very close to the first round, but he was not in the first round, which to me is an amazing pick.
Yeah, especially for the money part. And I'm trying to figure out, do we have a guy from every round, or do you have a guy from every round in your thing? Because I know that Aaron Jones was a 5th round pick.
Aaron Jones is a 5th. I don't know if I have a 3rd. Was Dalvin Cook 3rd?
Let me check.
But I know Jonathan Taylor was not in the first round.
Dalvin Cook was 2nd.
Okay.
I think Jonathan Taylor was 2nd as well. To your point, he was. He was the same exact pick as Dalvin Cook. Both were 41st.
2nd round to me is kind of the prime picking spot. That's where I would go because there are some people that...
Wow, the pick in the 40s, from 41 to 45, 3 different players already.
Because I believe Kenneth Walker was also a 2nd round pick.
Nick Chubb, 2nd round pick. Let me find.
That's
Kenneth
the
Walker.
Round for me.
Kenneth Walker, 2nd round, 41st. We have 3 guys on your list. 41st. Taylor, or I guess Walker on my list. So we kind of separated it out. But Cook, Walker, and JT, all 41st.
But yeah, so I have many things, but it's the first round. It's tough to hit that. But once I get out, but I'm not going to draft a running back in the 5th round. I know Pollard was just amazing. I think to get a running back in the top 3, you probably want a second round. But if I can find a running back that does part of the job, because I think you can have multiple running backs that accomplish the main goal.
Yeah, Jamal Williams for me, because he's in my honorable mention, was a 4th rounder. Brees Hall was a 2nd rounder. Man.
Jamal Williams does a good job of he'd be when I get into 5 yards or when I need a couple yards.
Yeah.
And like he can still burst, but he's more of that. I'm just thinking of like the Madden archetypes of that. You have the you have the flashy back, and then you also have the. I can't describe it right now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You have a speedy guy, but you also have a guy that can truck someone.
I don't think I even have any 3rd rounders. I have a 1st, a 2nd, a 4th, a 5th.
Alvin Kamara. Oh my gosh, Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is not on my list. He was on it, but then I deleted him, I believe.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way.
He was in the 3rd round.
3rd. Yeah, he's one of the few 3rd rounders I can think of.
Yeah, 2nd round seems like the perfect place. We'll have to talk about we're getting closer to the draft, and we'll have to see where Bijan Robinson goes. But there are also some other. I'm curious also on what you think of Deuce Vaughn.
Thoughts on who?
Deuce Vaughn.
Oh. Do you want me to save that for the draft video?
Yeah, we can say that. We will probably do some draft videos of some intriguing prospects for us. But yeah, I wanted to bring up that point because mine is very against. I will not take a running back in the top 10, no matter what.
I think there's only one scenario where I would, and it really comes down to the guy has to be obviously built. It would have to be a guy like McCaffrey.
Yeah,
McCaffrey's the guy. I see him, and I'm like, wow, this guy did everything for his team, and that's really. But it's so risky to do it because you're not always going to get a McCaffrey when you choose it. And I feel like the fall off from getting a running back is much harder than any other position if you get it wrong.
Yeah, that's true, and which would be another reason why I don't really want to use a 1st round pick on him.
Yeah, you're not the biggest running back supporter.
Yes, yeah, when running backs think of someone they can talk to.
Yeah, you're not their emotional support person.
I'm the person they're trying to stop.
Yeah, they're the person they're talking about in their counselor meeting.
Yes, I'm the outside group chat roast. Like they're like, man, this podcaster. But this was a good episode and good rankings. Let us know what you think, and that's all we got. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Printed. Don't forget to check out OO_podcast20. I believe that's our Instagram. And OO_podcast. I believe that's our Twitter. They may be flipped, but just OO_podcast, then maybe 20. That's all we got. Let us know. We have updates, YouTube. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. I haven't said that in a while, but give us a rating. 5-star ratings only, no lower rating.
I'm telling you right now, Kevin, no running backs giving us a high rating.
Well, they might because of you. So if you're a running back fan and you agree with Austin, give us a 4. Give us a 5 and say this is purely because of Austin. Kevin gets a 0.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Do that. And if you're a fan of my view of running back, give me a 5-star, and then I agree with Kevin. Austin, 2.5.
Fair.
But yeah, that's all we got. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.